All right. I guess this is a video to quote unquote people who identify themselves as chosen. I'm not exactly sure if it's something that a person should make an identity out of, but chances are, if the core subject matter of what people identify as chosen and it resonates with you, chances are you may have been in more than one environment where something didn't feel right. More often than not, you've probably found it on the job where you've always found that you may have been the overachiever, the person who shows up to work and does work that's largely invisible by the upper level management. And out of nowhere, it seems like the environment sours and it seems that you're subject to like sabotage, or it seems like the organization is trying to chase you out. And the reason why this happens a lot of times, you don't necessarily have to have done anything wrong, but invariably what happens is that it was one of your peers or a middle level management who decides that you may be a threat, and they become hyper focused and fixated on disconstructing your work. And the sad part about it is you'll have these said individuals, they may have worked at an organization so long that they know how to complain in such a way that it gets the attention of maybe like HR and upper level management, because upper level management and HR are largely lazy and they tend to rule by just systems and not really understand the implementation of said systems. So you'll have maybe one of your peers or someone who feel threatened, and they begin reframing your work and perverting it to mean something else as some type of safety concern or something like that. And the travesty is many of those meetings happen about a particular person and they get triangulated. They're not invited into the meeting. So you'll have lots of meetings and lots of dialogue happen between these quote unquote saboteurs and the upper level management. You never get invited to the room. By the time you catch wind of it, it's much too late. The narrative has already been framed, and since you weren't able to catch the narrative, you'll be working one day and out of nowhere somebody will make this innocuous comment about you, and you're like, "What the hell did that be?" Now it's cryptic, and by then it was too late. Somebody had been framing a narrative about you, but the way the companies work, they're lazy because you would think that if another coworker has an issue with another one, rather than have anonymous meetings where they don't call out names and dates, you would think they would invite all the parties in so that they can have disclosure. So to say a person that's being spoken against, they have an opportunity to either um, have some type of redress or grievances. But in the companies, they don't do that. By the time it by the time it reached them, a decision has already been made, and you never had an opportunity to know what was going on in the meetings. Sometimes it's difficult because you're totally blindsided and you don't know what was said. So if you don't know what issues that were being brought up, you don't know what to defend against. And and since the provocateurs know this, it'll turn into like a type of passive aggressive disrespect where they want you to react. So it further validates their case. I've seen numerous videos online where people say just put your head down, work, and ignore it. And after 20 something years, I can say that that doesn't work. People say don't lose your cool and don't let it bother you. The truth is, Everybody has limits, and over time, it will wear you out. The environment won't change. You will probably change first before the environment does. And the best thing you have to do is you have to control the narrative early about your own work. And when you see someone trying to provoke you, perverting a narrative, you have to be able to control that narrative and know who to say the right thing to and know what language that you have to say. Because other than that, what I've seen predicated on my experiences across different industries and different actors, if you don't say anything, your narrative never gets heard. And eventually, if you don't do anything in return, what ends up happening, you just go away quietly. So you have to control the narrative to know who you need to complain to or what language to use. That's the first thing. And then when you go into the organization, it's called the beginner's paradox, where as soon as you go into an organization, upper level management, they don't see it. It's only certain metrics that they actually pay attention to. And if what you're doing is largely invisible to the right people, it's almost invisible. And I can guarantee you that your peers, excuse me, in middle level management, they're not going to say anything to the right persons to highlight your strengths. If anything, if you have a particular talent, they'll reframe it to being something to make it seem as if it's a liability. And the upper level management only care about metrics. Like I said, you'll have the people on the lower echelon, they'll try to complain about it and keep reframing. You don't, and oblivious to you, you don't know what was being said. And then, especially if you go into an organization and you're brand new, the people at the bottom notice everything that you do before the upper level management do, because upper level management, as I said, they only care about systems that are designed to get a certain result. The nuances and things they're largely ignorant of, but the people who are around you, they know how to they know how to reframe the circumstances around you. The other thing, not doing nothing, it only makes yourself an easier target. Most people that this happened to, it's never the people who don't perform. What I've seen is you'll see people in a department, they'll start going against the person who they feel threatened by. You may be, and some of the things are just straight trivial. Some of the things may be a person may feel uncomfortable because you're more attractive than them, more muscular, have more education, or outwork them, and they'll reframe that as something negative so that they try to control the way people think about you or how they view your work or performance. And so you go in as a new kid on the block, you have a certain amount of time before you before you have to make your value known to the people that matter. Because if you just naturally perform, you mind your own business, or something about your work stands out, upper level management don't notice nothing. The people at the bottom will notice it, and they'll start attacking it. So, and if you have a visible value, you don't wait till your performance review. You have to make it known to the people that are in a position to do something that you are ambitious and what you're after. Because what I've seen is that by being silent, you allow them to control the narrative, and you only have a certain amount of finite resources before the environment engulfs you. And what I've observed about most companies, the HR is largely lazy. They only care about if somebody makes something seem as if it's a risk, even if it's not. They feel they have to manage and mitigate the risk. But by the time by the time any paper is hung on you, or by the time you actually sit in a meeting, the real meeting about it has already happened. At that point, they're just sitting back trying to see if you will offer any resistance, or if you may say something that may cause them liability or to get sued, even if what they're saying is baseless or frivolous. Um, so the whole thing I see about just put your head down and just mind your business, that don't work. Sometimes when people pick those targets, they watch you and they'll start testing you to see test your boundaries to see what they can get away with. You're not cut like that. Whereas the people who've been at companies long enough or engage in that type of predatory behavior, they sit back and watch long enough to know if your strategy is to ignore them. And while you don't visibly show any reaction, you react on the inside and they notice. And so they're willing to play the long game until it starts to affect you. So you got to do something early on. And, sometimes confrontation is necessary. At least it'll send a clear message that you will do something back. But not doing nothing back is the worst thing you could do.